Please take your seats. The show is about to begin. Please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Welcome aboard.
Please welcome to the stage Axios political reporter Hans Nichols.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. As the intro said, my name is Hans Nichols. I'm a reporter at Axios. I write a newsletter called Axios Hill Leaders. Well, I write it with my colleagues, which is to say they do all the work and I get all the credit. But our goal is to put this newsletter out just about Congress through the prism of the four leaders every night at 8 o'clock, which means we have 12 hours to come up with a good set of stories, and hopefully the Congress lady will help us get there. Quick, some housekeeping. If you're following at home, be sure to I think it's hashtag Axios events. And I'd also like to thank Bank of America for making all of this possible. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome up the Congresswoman from Michigan, the House Republican Conference Chair, Lisa McClain. Congresswoman.
Hey, how are you?
Great to see you.
I should have worn my high heels. Sorry.
The walk-up music's great. It's like we're in the major leagues, and these are our songs. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks.
It's an early morning. You've had some late nights. You're going to have a big day. I think we all are. In about an hour's time, you'll be in the House Republican Conference. Then you'll do some press, and you're working to elevate some of the members of your party to really drive home some of the issues that are important to you. Walk us through that strategy and what the goals are.
Just a little bit of context. My background is business, spent 35 years in business, and I think a lot of the same principles apply here. If you elevate and amplify the people around you, that only makes you stronger and actually the conference stronger. So my goal is not just to amplify my face and my message, but it's to amplify the conference's message. And we really do have a diverse conference. We have African Americans, Arab Americans, Latinos. We need to bring those coalitions to the forefront because they understand the issues better than I understand the issues because they live it. It's who they are, right? They've grown up in it. And I'm not afraid to say there are, in Congress, there's everything coming at you from tax policy to foreign policy, especially with the president. He's been on a roll lately. Everybody has a little bit different area of expertise. So I think we bring those people in who understand those areas of expertise better than I do and put them at the forefront to tell the stories.
And so you have Monica de la Cruz today. You're going to be talking fentanyl. There's a bill that's going to be on the floor, I think, later this week.
Yep.
74 Democrats voted for it last time. Yep. Where do you think you'll get this time? And has there been that much of a shift when you look across the aisle onto what Democrats are willing to support on fentanyl, on the border, the Lake and Riley Act we saw?
I wish there was more of a shift. I guess I'm optimistic by nature. I think if you really pause, step back and take a look, the American people want this fentanyl crisis taken care of. So I am hopeful, I am optimistic that we will get more than 74 Democrats to sign on to this law because it makes sense. I mean, we'll see. It's still politics. It's still partisan. But I'm hopeful that it'll come together a little bit more.
Do all the atmospherics with USAID, with what the president's talking about, do those in any way poison the well for bipartisanship? There's a great deal of concern that Democrats aren't going to provide any votes for any sort of government funding. You know as well as I do, the deadline's March 14th. Is there a spillover effect?
Well, I think I would not be telling the truth if I said there wasn't spillover effect. Of course there's spillover effect, but how much of that is a true spillover effect and how much of that is really marketing, right? At the end of the day, do the Democrats really want to own the government shutdown? I don't know. That's up for them to decide. But there's a lot of politics, right, that goes into play. But I can tell you this. If you, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but if you get the cameras out of the way, you get the news media out of the way, there's more things that we agree on behind the scenes than really is portrayed. And I understand, I've been in here, I'm going into my 5th year. I understand the marketing, I understand the politics of it, but at the end of the day, we got to begin to do what really the American people are asking us to do.
So what I'm hearing you say on sort of the government funding side is that Democrats are bluffing and that they will furnish enough votes to fund the government. Because to be frank about it, you're not going to have the votes on your side, and there's politics there as well.
There's politics of it as well. I don't know if I want to use the word bluffing. That's your word, not mine. But at the end of the day, both parties have the same dynamics, right? We have a very diverse party, again, in terms of we have people who are in very ruby red districts like mine, right? I'm an R plus 100. Then we have people who are in, seats that Joe Biden won, right? So, and the Democrats have the same thing, just the opposite effect. At the end of the day, we can talk about and we can pound our chest on what we're going to do, but when you hit that button, do you really, and I'll take a look at it from our perspective on the Republican side, do you really want to be the person that stands in the way of President Trump's agenda to hit that no button? It's easy to talk about it. It's harder to do, if that makes sense.
Well, Trump's occupying a large part of, I think, the country's consciousness as well as the Republican conference. You kind of hinted at it earlier with his comments on foreign policy, but how do you drive your message in a Trump world? Because it seems like we're just surfing Trump news cycles all day. And as a reporter, you think you have a good story in the morning, and by the afternoon it's stale. And you're probably frustrated as well.
I'm actually not. I think I come from a little different perspective, but Trump lays the groundwork. And really, if you can conceptualize what he's doing, it makes a ton of sense. It is going to take some unconventional wisdom, some unconventional ideas to get us out of this conventional mess that we're in. And that's what he's doing. So the concept is, whether it's foreign aid, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's the DOGE caucus, right? That all comes under the heading of unconventional ideas to get us out of the situation that we're in right now. If you go at it from that perspective, it's really easy to market, right? We don't have to come up with a news story. We don't have to come up with a message. We just have to embrace the unconventionalness of it, and that's what we're doing. So I'll share with you, it's a lot of fun.
So we're just jazz riffing all day. The president said...
Well, I don't think we're jazz riffing. Look at what happened in Colombia, right? A lot of times the threat of a tariff or the threat of a consequence, right? Because everybody can have an action, but I think what President Trump does differently than anybody else is he says, okay, you can have an action, but I will have a reaction to your action. And everyone is on notice on, oh man, I think he might be right. And that changes behavior. Like you saw with the Colombian president saying, I'm not taking any of these illegals. Oh, maybe I will take them, right? As you saw with the tariffs with Mexico and Canada, right? Everybody pounds their chest on, it's terrible, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do some retaliatory efforts. And then at the end of the day, he gets what he wants, which is more troops at the border to help protect American citizens with illegals, but not only illegals, but with the fentanyl crisis. So a lot of times just the mere negotiation or the threat of doing something gets an action, which at the end of the day is beneficial for the American people.
Do I detect a hint of press criticism?
No.
No, never.
Never,
not in this
never.
Venue.
No.
That we are focused on the sort of fluctuation and that the president gets his policy wins?
No, I don't think I have a very different attitude towards the press. I think we make a good partnership. I really do. At the end of the day, you have a story that you want to tell to your readers, right? I mean, that's what you're in the business of, is giving information to your audience. It's our job to help you come up with that content or that information. If I block and I don't have a relationship with the press, you're going to go find your information from someone. Why wouldn't I partner with you in that journey and help draft the story from my perspective or as I see it?
Yeah, a lot of times you're reactive though, right? And this is sort of the reality of a Trump news cycle, is that there are going to be a bunch of cameras on Capitol Hill, and we're going to all ask you a version what we did for the first term, which is, have you seen the tweet? And I will do my best, Manu Raja impersonation, which is, I have a camera and I'm going to see you and say, the president wants to occupy Gaza.
Right.
Congresswoman, do you support the occupation of Gaza?
Right. And sometimes it's like, oh my heavens, I didn't even see that tweet yet, right? Because to your point, you start out with a news story. But different is, again, if you go back to the concept as opposed to the specific, I think the president is going to throw everything but the kitchen sink to solve problems. And some of them are going to be very, very unconventional, but he's going to see what works and he's going to see what sticks. So I think it's a little bit different from before, is he's truly driving the news cycle. There's
no doubt about that.
100% no question. We have to embrace that. We're not changing that.
Yeah.
right? And I don't know that that's a bad thing. We just have to be better on our feet. And thank God I have a good comms team that keeps me abreast, and my phone's ding, 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 and all the time on, did you see what happened?
That's a sophisticated answer, but I didn't hear an answer to the question of, do you support U.S. occupation of Gaza?
So the short answer to that is we'll see. And what I want to say is that we're going to end up fixing Gaza anyway. At the end of the day, they're not calling Canada. Everybody around the world calls somebody. And who is that somebody? It's us, right? And let's take a look at the resources that we're sending over there right now. What I don't know is, does it make sense? And I think we need to unpack a lot of that. But I will share this with you. I trust and believe in President Trump to get us out of the situations that we're in right now. So at first blush, I trust him. He's our head coach. We've 77 million Americans elected the head coach. Who am I to go against his play?
So, as someone who is coaching and was coaching 12 hours ago youth basketball, a
Oh,
U12
God
team,
bless you. Sometimes that's harder than the job we have.
they don't. Players don't always listen to the coach.
Yep.
And they have a lot of, especially 10 to 11-year-old boys, have a lot of ideas about what to name plays. You say, there's always a debate about what are we going to call this play. And maybe I need to be more Bobby Knight and just,
I love Bobby
and
Knight.
just really says
Yeah.
the Michigan, says the congressman from Michigan.
I do.
Players don't always listen to their coaches. You talked about pressing the button when you're voting electronically. I hope that's what you're talking about. Maybe there are other buttons in there.
No, there's not that perfect button. There's yes, no, and present, right? There's not that perfect button.
So does the president, as a coach, have the ability to force 218 members of your conference to do his will? Because that's what we're getting at.
I would change a few of the words that you just said. I wouldn't use the word force, your word.
Convince.
Not mine. Highly encourage. How's that? I think he does. But let me share with you why I think he does. I think for two things. All you have to do is look at the speaker's race, right? We had 4 holdouts on the speaker's race. He made a call, talked to three people, and encouraged them to switch their vote.
The speaker's race was binary, though. That was vote for this guy or don't.
Well,
when you get into a reconciliation negotiation, it gets very complicated.
But at the end, it's binary. You either push that yes button or you push that no button.
So Chip Roy thinks it's binary. Ralph Norman thinks it's binary.
Well, I think that's where no one sees the behind the scenes and everything that we're doing right now behind the scenes. The one thing I can share with you is I've had, we were in Doral. We met with the president behind the scenes at Doral before he went up. No one sees that. No one sees the calls that he makes behind the scenes. You know, he will call members and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or he will engage with leadership on, what do you think about this? Is it too much? Is it not enough? That's the piece that nobody really sees. All they see is the forward-facing, piece. So I don't think it's quite that simple. Okay. It's a little bit more complex, and I've never met anybody with more energy than the president. I mean, he will call you at midnight and say, and it's like, what's going on? That's just, it's crazy.
It's unique. We say unique.
It's unique.
We say unique, not crazy.
Okay, it's unique.
Well, I mean,
I'm working on my words.
As someone who receives calls at all hours of the night and early in the morning, I might use crazy too. One thing that is fixed is the clock and the calendar.
Yes.
You're supposed to have a deadline this week. The Budget Committee was supposed to report out a resolution. Are they going to do that? And if not, what are the consequences?
So I wasn't in the meting last night, but if I'm a betting woman,
and a well-sourced congresswoman.
Yes, thank you. I don't believe we're going to take the vote on the budget resolution this week. And the bottom line is, the clock is ticking, and we can't agree on the number or the principle of the number. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's important. You know, the budget resolution is really a tool to unlock budget reconciliation, right? CBO has to score it. Well, there's one school of thought that says we should come in with a baseline, let's say floor, of what we can actually get through. Because if we come in too high with that number, and let's say we come in with $100, the CBO can say, yeah, no, it's only really worth 80, and it doesn't go down to 80, that whole $100 gets thrown out. Well, that's kind of a risk. So there's a school of thought that people want to have a floor. The other school of thought is, no. We want to press that number up really high to make sure we get the budget cuts, the spending cuts that we want. And therein lies the negotiation of, here's the floor, here's the ceiling, where is that middle ground, for lack of a better word?
But it seems like they're far away from agreeing to that. I mean,
I wouldn't say they're far away, but I would say sometimes the last 10%, I mean, the red zone football, we're coming up to the Super Bowl, sometimes that last 10 yards is just as hard as the first 90. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. It can feel really far away.
I'll see your red zone and flip it to Valentine's Day,
okay,
where people give red roses in some cultures. Do we have a budget resolution out of the House by Valentine's Day?
Again, I'm an optimist by nature, and I think the answer is yes, because my fear is if we don't have a budget resolution out of the House by Valentine's Day, we're going to get jammed by the Senate. I think that's just the reality. Right? I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist.
Is that a persuasive argument to your colleagues that are holding out for the high ceiling?
I think it is a persuasive argument, but again, I can see both sides of the coin, because for so many years we talk about spending cuts, and sometimes, we all want, it's just a different way to approach it, but I think it's a valid argument, because if we control, I would rather control our own destiny than put it in the Senate's hands. That's me. And I think that's the bulk of the members in the House. So I think as we get closer, it's kind of like doing a school project. If it's due on Monday, you never do it the previous Tuesday. My kids, at least, always waited till Sunday night to get the project done. So the closer that deadline gets, the more serious we get. It's just human nature.
Yeah. So senators are going down to Mar-a-Lago. They're obviously going to make their play to try to jam the House. What's your strategic countermove?
Our strategic countermove is to get everybody continuing in the room like we did last night, even till late last night, and get a deal. I mean, we are negotiating with ourselves right now. But I will say this, what we're doing, I don't think we should rush, but there again, there's that fine line between do we rush it and then do we run out of time, right? There's that interesting balance with that huge majority we have in the House. Obviously, I'm saying that sarcastically. I mean, the Senate has a bigger majority than we do. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. If we get this right, when we get this right, this could truly be transformational. And we have to get it right. So if we pause just a little bit, I'd rather take, here, let me put my political spin on it. I'd rather it take longer and we get it right than rush through it and get the deadline.
Okay. I could see as a mom that you really, really forced those deadlines. I mean, Sunday night, if we're doing that project Monday morning, I'm happy. Speaking of deadlines, there will eventually be a filing deadline for the Michigan Senate race. Can you definitively rule it out?
Oh, I hate the word definitively.
Can you rule it out softly?
Never. I mean, I'm happy where I'm at. I really am. This is going into my 5th term. I'm in leadership. I like what I do. I actually like who I do it with. I'm in a pretty good spot.
So you're running, is what you're saying?
No, I don't. I think the opposite. What I've always told my kids the whole life is prepare yourself for any opportunity that comes your way, right? Even in business, never go into a negotiation saying, this is the precise deal I want. You should keep an open mind and look at it. But if I'm doing the pros versus cons, I'm really happy where I'm at. I mean, really happy where I'm at.
Can Buttigieg win a primary on the other side?
I think it's going to be tough for him.
Why?
He's not from Michigan, number one. And the Democrats in Michigan, I think, will coalesce around somebody. And I don't have any inside baseball on that. My gut just, he's not from Michigan. Michigan, we like our Michiganders.
When Twitter wags say Traverse City, explain that to a non-Michigander.
Traverse City is beautiful, but it's more of a resort. People have their, they go up there to vacation, right? It's not a huge population like Detroit where everybody lives or Grand Rapids where everybody lives. It's more of a destination, a second home, a vacation area. Not that there's not people that don't live there, but it's just more of a vacation area.
Okay.
There's fewer roots, right? Like I live in Romeo, right? I go to the high school football games on Friday night, still like to do that. That's not so much the feeling in Traverse City. I go up to Traverse City to go by the water and to go to the wineries and to do a little shopping and a little, right?
Okay. Too frou-frou.
Yeah.
My words, not yours.
Yours.
Okay. One final geography question.
Sure. Geography.
Yeah. So you're on Lake. Your district comes up to Lake Huron.
Yep.
Why is Lake Michigan more desirable than Lake Huron, or is that a slander that I've committed on stage?
You have committed a slander again. There. See. That's my district, right?
I
love it.
Okay.
I don't know. I love Lake Huron. I love Lake Michigan. I mean, we have options. The beauty in Michigan, we have options.
Okay. I don't have any options because I'm getting a wrap up.
Oh.
But Congresswoman, this has been tremendously enjoyable. Thank you very much for your time. I think we are going to stand up and exit, hopefully gracefully. Okay. These stairs always give me a little bit.
That's why I wore my flats.
But everyone should sit tight because we're going to have a quick message from Bank of America. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now a message from our sponsor.
So I'm Yolanda Stratford, and I am a market executive in our global commercial bank here in the DMV. Well, Bank of America has actually done about 15 Play It Forward clinics over the past 2 years, but this is actually our first in Washington, D.C. And why that's important? Because it brings us into the communities, and we get to emphasize, number one, inclusion, right, and the importance of physical activity, mental health, physical health, and overall wellness.
Have organizations like Bank of America and the Commanders coming together to be able to put on something like this for the Special Olympics. There's so many different people that will love to be in their shoes right now, and you can tell that they know how special it is. I mean, I'm listening to some of the athletes over there now just talking about Santana, you was on this field and I saw you running for a touchdown, and like they have those memories, and I lived it. So for them to be able to be a part of it, to be out here on this field and me to share that memory with them up close in person, I think it's great for what both those organizations are.
Hey everybody, I'm old number 28, Darryl Green. I'm here at the Bank of America Play It Forward Clinic and the Commanders. It's more of a privilege to be here than anything. It's a lot of learning going on out here, a lot of fun going on out here. Happy for the moms and dads, the guardians, to have a moment of fun and free. Very special day. Thanks again to the Commanders, Bank of America, and everybody else who came out.
Please welcome to the stage Axios Pro Tech Policy reporter Maria Curie.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Maria Curie. I'm a tech policy reporter at Axios. I won't make you wait any longer. We have a great guest today, Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. Congressman, join us on stage. Well, thanks for being here. So, Congressman, let's get right to it. Oracle is still hosting TikTok, We have the president, kind of pressuring Google and Apple to have the app back on its app stores. In your view, as the author of this law, is the law being broken? And can you remind us what actually would satisfy a deal under that law?
Sure. Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and great to be with someone who comes from my congressional district. So, someone who went on to do some good. Look, the law requires a divestiture of TikTok from ByteDance, and the most important language in the law with regard to that type of divestiture is there cannot be any operational relationship between whoever ends up buying TikTok and ByteDance, nor can ByteDance access the data of TikTok, okay? So, given that fact, a lot of people are lining up to buy TikTok, everyone from the former Dodgers owner Frank McCourt to Mr. Beast to others. And so I expect that a sale will happen, and I hope that the president brokers the sale. You said Oracle is hosting TikTok now, but on the other hand, TikTok is not in the Apple or Google Play Store. And so different companies are kind of doing different things. All that being said, right now the best conclusion will be for ByteDance to sell TikTok, and the CCP has opened the door for that.
Do you think it'll happen by early April, which is the deadline that the president gave?
I'm crossing all fingers and toes at this
Okay,
point.
gotcha.
And I'm very hopeful.
So one of the most recent proposals from the president was to have a sovereign wealth fund that could maybe allow the government to own a stake in the company, make money off of it. He wants up to 50%. That is a proposal that likely needs congressional approval. What do you think about that idea, and would you vote for something like that?
It's unconventional. It's unusual. I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Okay. So you are the ranking member of a committee that is very ripe for bipartisan work. There is broad bipartisan interest in countering China and winning this tech race. What do you want to see from the U.S.-China Select Committee, and where do you want it to go next?
I think a couple things. One, I'm really pleased that we've maintained kind of a bipartisan constructive relationship on this committee between the Democrats and the Republicans. And as you know, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is expecting us to be divided. And so playing against type and presenting a united approach is very important. All that being said, I'm hopeful that we can work constructively with the Trump administration, as we did with the Biden administration, in formulating policy going forward. I'd like to see some of those export controls and those outbound investment restrictions that were executive orders under the Biden administration actually become legislation. And there is a lot of activity in that regard on a bipartisan basis, so I'm hopeful there. And then I'd also like to see us improve our competitiveness position as a country using this particular committee as a platform. So, for instance, investing heavily in AI, quantum, technologies of the future, which is very important if we're going to win the strategic competition, as well as, quite frankly, fixing our legal immigration system, which right now is holding us back in preventing us from attracting and retaining the very best talent from around the world in these technologies of the future. And then finally, upskilling our own indigenous workforce in those technologies.
Is there specific legislation that you can think of at this moment that you would like to pursue, and how will you reach across the aisle to Republicans on this issue?
Sure. Well, we're actually kind of working with them right now as we speak on these particular pieces of legislation. So the outbound legislation that almost made it into the CR in December is now the subject of negotiation again. We are also working on biotech legislation, which also almost made it into the CR last December, and then other pieces of legislation as well.
Got it. And you mentioned export controls. The Biden administration, before leaving, released this global export control regime. The Trump administration has not rescinded that effort. Are you working with the administration to make sure that it sticks? There's kind of a comment period where certain companies could come in and influence those rules.
I'd like to see the Trump administration kind of build upon that effort. I think there's a lot of interest in doing so. I think you're referring to the AI diffusion rule, for instance, which basically prevents the holes that might exist within the sanctions or export restrictions regime from allowing technology that would otherwise be restricted to China to going through third parties to China. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so kind of adopting some of those restrictions on a bipartisan basis, putting it into legislation would even be better. But if we could start with even an executive order, I don't think this president is allergic to doing executive orders. So there might be another one on this as well.
Got it. And is there a lot of appetite for that at this moment? And is it something that you can see happening after reconciliation or in tandem with that?
I think we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that this is one of those issues where I don't think we should wait. I think we should continue to work on it even as we're working on these other reconciliation items and so forth.
Got it. So we have seen that Trump has imposed tariffs on China.
I noticed.
We're going to see retaliatory tariffs come into effect on February 10th. He has floated the possibility of imposing tariffs on semiconductors. What do you think this approach does to, U.S.-China relations and global competitiveness for the U.S.?
Well, I think it throws everything into uncertainty, right? I think that we are in a period where both consumers, producers, others are not really sure what's going to happen. So they're going to hold up on their buying decisions. They're going to hold up on their investment decisions. I also think that levying tariffs on our friends, partners, and allies like Canada amounts to what the Wall Street Journal called the dumbest trade war in history. And I think that's exactly what China wants. They want us to get into these skirmishes with our friends, partners, and allies because they want to drive us away from those people or those countries that together pose a real challenge to the Chinese Communist Party in terms of imposing international norms, imposing kind of the rules of the road for conducting yourself economically, militarily, or technologically.
The argument that we have heard for imposing tariffs on semiconductors is that that will then, kind of be an incentive for the domestic manufacturing of chips. Do you think that that is the correct approach? And are you hopeful that the CHIPS and Science Act will continue, in full force under this administration?
The answer to the latter question is yes, absolutely. I think it's been a success. It's incentivized the manufacturing of chips in the United States that wouldn't otherwise happen to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. With regard to tariffs on chips coming in, let's just take Taiwan, for instance. Taiwan manufactures 90% of high-end chips in the world. If you're going to tariff those particular chips, you're doing two things. One, again, we're levying tariffs on friends, partners in the region and in the world, which is not good, in my opinion. And then secondly, you're just going to raise prices for consumers, right, on everything that they buy that is electronic in nature. I just think in this inflationary environment, does that make a lot of sense? I don't think the answer is yes.
And you mentioned high-skilled immigration and the importance of that as well. How does the focus really being on undocumented migrants affect that strategic goal for the United States?
Well, as you know, there was a debate within the Republican Party about H-1B, for instance, high-skilled immigrants. I'm glad that President Trump seemed to side with those in favor of high-skilled immigration, right? I think that, I don't know if there are any DOGE employees in the crowd, but I know that Elon Musk also heavily favors this. I think it was a healthy debate within the Republican Party. A recent poll showed that 70% of Americans think that we should have a high-skilled immigration program such as H-1B. That being said, if we don't fix that, we will absolutely lose the competition not only to the CCP, but to many other countries throughout the world in winning technologies of the future, AI, quantum, nanoscale computing, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Given this administration's focus on the southern border and undocumented migrants, do you see this issue being prioritized this year or really being kicked down the road?
So I think that there's a lot of bipartisan appetite for dealing with the border, and I think that the president is going to need additional resources with regard to the border. And if he needs additional resources for the border, I think he's going to need Democratic votes. In dealing with the border, we can also deal with the immigration issue at the same time. and there might be an opportunity for the type of, I don't want to say grand bargain, but the deal that was done in the Senate, which Trump tubed previously. And it might come up again, maybe in a way where Trump can take credit, which is fine with me. We have to fix this. That's the main point.
You mentioned DOGE and the impact that is having across the federal government here in Washington, D.C. Tell us what your impression is of that effort, and have you been hearing about it from your constituents back in Illinois?
Oh my God, we've been hearing it from your hometown, Elgin, Illinois, and pretty much every part of my district. We had between 300 and 400 calls yesterday about DOGE and about Elon Musk's and DOGE's access to the federal payment system. I don't know if any of you heard about this. But essentially, the Treasury Department confirmed last night in a letter by Jonathan Bloom that members of DOGE have access to the federal payment system. This is the system that controls payments to hundreds of millions of Americans. $6 trillion in payments were made last year. It's alarming. It's absolutely alarming. And so, yes, the answer is we've gotten a lot of outreach. When I was boarding my plane to come here day before yesterday, someone came up to me in the boarding line asking me this question. Is my data now accessible to Elon Musk? I mean, that's how much this particular inquiry has permeated the public.
Yeah. Zooming out from Elon Musk, are you concerned about these tech CEOs and their access to the administration and how that might impact tech policy in the next 4 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the question is conflicts of interest, right? How do you look? Is it okay for tech CEOs or anyone in this audience to have input and to give their advice on tech policy? The answer is yes. I think that we should have an open door policy that invites everyone to comment. However, if you are going to have decision-making responsibility, or if you're going to deeply influence tech policy, then there are conflicts of interest that have to be navigated to make sure that you aren't doing something that either ices out your competition or overly favors your own position. And so that is the fundamental kind of question that people have on their minds about Elon Musk or others having so much influence on the White House.
Is there anything Congress should be doing about that, Democrats in particular?
Absolutely. I think this morning we're actually having a hearing with regard to the federal workforce, and I think that this is going to come up, and I think we're going to shine a light on this. I think personally that the public working with members of Congress, and of course there will be legal challenges as well, together have an impact, which you saw just last Tuesday with regard to the federal funding freeze. That freeze obviously got reversed because of the hue and cry from others, and you have to have the same kind of outcome or same kind of response on other issues that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and one more question on DOGE. How do you see that impacting, or have you begun to think about how this is going to impact tech and science agencies in particular that are researching AI, making sure there are partnerships between the government and the private sector, and that's a factor in U.S.-China competition. So how are you thinking about that?
I think that the idea of a Department of Government Efficiency and making government more efficient makes all the sense in the world, and I think that there are models for how to conduct this type of process in a way that brings in stakeholders, gets great outcomes, and we get to a better place. However, if we're going to have a situation where DOGE, again, is going to make decisions about AI policy or make decisions about quantum that favor certain incumbents or that isn't conducted in a transparent way, that's when we have problems. As you know, as I said in my opening remarks about the committee, I believe strongly that the federal government must invest a lot more in the quantum effort and technologies of the future. Just in quantum alone, the Chinese Communist Party is investing $16 billion a year. We, last year, invested about $4 billion. And unfortunately, the private sector is not making up the gap. So they're going to continue to make progress while we are kind of in a situation where I think we are in the lead, but it may not be for long.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Congressman. That
Thank
is all
you.
the time that we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for all of you. Thanks for coming. Thank you to Bank of America. Enjoy the rest of your day. Grab some coffee. Thank you.
Thank you.